State policy and practice to span the digital divide. As we all know, the digital divide is a reproduction in the new environment of old inequalities. In other words, people that don't have jobs, don't have broadband. People who are marginalized in any way are at the same time challenged to use this new technology. We know that the way in which the market has been structured, thinking of each of us as consumers of various digital tools, these business models have not often been inclusive. And that really sets the stage for state policy. So anyone that says that the market will take care of everything is not looking at the total picture. Because historically, not only was the United States government, through the military, the funders for digital technology and the internet, which did not come from the private sector, it came from the public sector. And it continues to be fueled by places like the University of Illinois, the public sector, state institution. And out of that comes things like Mosaic, which turned into Netscape, PayPal. These weren't things that came from the private sector. These things came from graduate students that were in the public sector. So the public sector has been driving digital technology from the very beginning. So nobody should accept the fabrication that all of this comes from the private sector or the market. And so today what we're talking about is state policy in Illinois, which is a very progressive policy to the extent that there are annual funding cycles for projects to impact the digital divide. And that brings us to our panel today. And so today we're going to have presentations from various angles, from the standpoint of the state and the standpoint of recipients of state funding. And so perhaps we should we haven't discussed this on the panel. Normally that's discussed before we have the panel as to what order we're going to go in. And so I'm going to ask the panelists, hello out there in cyberspace, I'm going to ask the panelists, who would like to go first?
I'm going to go first.
Okay, the state will go first. So we're going to have Joey Mock speak from the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Thank you for the introduction, and I want to thank all of you who decided to skip the Chicago hip hop and social justice session to come listen to me talk. So, and this is my fellow panelists as well. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Joey Mack, and I am in the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, which I realize is a bit of a mouthful. So oftentimes I just tell people that I'm with the Department of Commerce or that I'm with DCEO, which is a habit I'm trying to break myself of. Because when I say that, when I abbreviate my employer's name, I'm leaving out a very important component, which is we are the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And it's really that second part of what we do that really gets at the heart of what we're trying to do with the Digital Divide program. So before I get into that, let me add a little color to this conversation. Just last week, the Pew Research Center released some findings. They did a report on digital disparities, and among their findings, they found that 1 in 5 American adults currently do not use the internet at all. And of that population, about 20% of them say the main reason they don't is because they don't know enough about technology to start using the internet on their own. These numbers were even higher about a decade ago. It was during the late 90s when a group of state lawmakers and advocates, led in large part by Representative Connie Howard from Chicago, decided to get together because they noticed that there was a dramatic socio-economic shift taking place. The internet was becoming more and more common, not only in households but also in businesses, governments. Internet access and digital adoption were connecting people over large distances and providing opportunities to increase efficiencies and access information with a global reach. But with those exciting opportunities came some real challenges. as the world started moving towards this digitally dependent, knowledge-based economy that we know today, those who didn't have access to digital technology or those who lacked the training on how to use that technology were being left in the digital dust. So Representative Howard and that group of lawmakers and advocates who I mentioned just a minute ago decided that it was time for the state to intervene. They understood that lowering the technological barrier to entry and closing that digital skills gap was just as important to our state's future economic competitiveness as knowing how to read. So in 1999-2000, the Illinois General Assembly passed the Eliminate the Digital Divide law, which in short authorizes my agency, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, to make grants to establish community technology centers, or CTCs as we call them, across the state. So let me tell you a little bit about how they work. Around the beginning of each calendar year, we put out a request for applications. Entities that are eligible to apply are community anchor institutions, which include public hospitals, public schools, park districts, libraries, nonprofit organizations, as well as for-profit educational institutions are also eligible to apply. They're also required to serve an eligible community, which is defined by the National School Lunch Statistics. And what they're applying for is up to $75,000 in grant money from the state to develop a CTC that's charged with doing two things. The first is providing access to computers and internet service, or general access for the community. The second is providing training programs and opportunities that teach basic computer and digital skills. And they're also required to provide both of these components for a minimum of 12 hours a week. The program targets disadvantaged and underserved populations, including seniors, at-risk youth, minority groups, as well as the disabled. So what's our overall goal with the program? From our perspective, the last thing that we want to do is set up internet cafes. That's not what we're trying to do here. We want to support the creation of neighborhood establishments where residents can not only learn how to use the internet and learn how to use computers, but also be inspired to adopt internet and technology usage as part of their daily lives. So I want to talk a little bit about CTCs, at least the type that we've supported over the years. And as my good friend Bruce Montgomery, who is not here right now, but as he said in the meeting that we were all in a couple weeks ago, when we're talking about CTCs, we're not talking about necessarily, storefront, standalone places that we need to fill with computers and instructors to provide training, although we have provided support to some examples of that. The grants that we're making are not intended to reinvent the wheel because A, it's only for a maximum of $75,000 a year, and B, it's only a one-year grant. So if the CTC wants more money from us the following year, they need to reapply, and there's no guarantee that they're going to get it that second or third time around. What we're trying to do with these grants is have them be there to supplement a group or an organization's broader catalog of services. We want to be a partner, not a lead investor in what these CTCs are trying to do. For example, we got Brian Bell with Parkland Community College, who you're going to hear from in a moment. And I don't want to speak for you, Brian, but Parkland, they've received money from us, from the state in the past through this program. They also happen to be a current grantee. And again, while I don't want to speak for you, what I do know is that the availability of state funds is not the reason why Brian exists and why your CTC exists. They already had some resources that were available through the college. What our grant dollars did was enable them to do a little bit more. At least that was our intention.
It worked.
The point is, in putting grant dollars into these communities, we want to invest them such that they're being leveraged with other resources, whether it's in cash or in kind. We want to help see the development of a CTC that has the potential to sustain itself for 5 or 10 years, regardless of whether or not state funding is going to be available next time around. There are some areas of the state, of course, that don't have a Parkland Community College, that don't have a Lumity in their community. And in those cases, we have invested in proposals that perhaps didn't have the same number of resources at the starting line, but still have the potential to make an impact. The physical environment or the schematics of any particular CTC is just one component, though. As I mentioned earlier, that second component is the training component. The one question I get a lot is, what do I, as a CTC, as an applicant, What type of training program should I be implementing at my CTC if I want to get grant money? And honestly, the answers vary from one CTC to the next. DCO provides guidelines within our RFA outlining the components that we look for in any application, and they're kind of broken into three separate buckets. The first is teaching people to identify and define basic terminology. What is a cursor? What does it mean to shut down and reboot? What's the difference between software and hardware? That sort of thing. The second nugget is teaching people to create and organize information, whether it's teaching them how to do a simple Excel sheet or use a Word document, or what it means to copy and paste things. The third and final component is more along the lines of the actual internet usage, which is teaching them to access and transmit information. So teaching them what the internet is and how it works, how to send an email, how to attach documents, how to use search engines to find information. But these are, of course, just the bare minimum of what any training program should provide. We think, the state thinks it's important to give applicants a pretty good deal of latitude and creative discretion in terms of how they design and build their training programs. Because a training program that serves after-school youth is invariably going to look a little different than a training program that serves the blind, for example. In the last 5 years, the state has invested roughly $23 million into this program. We've supported over 250 community technology centers statewide that provided training to approximately 39,000 individuals annually, which is great. But so what? The question is, did those thousands of people who got training go on to pursue educational opportunities? Did the training that they received from their CTC make them more competitive in the employment pipeline? And my best answer to that is I really hope so, which I realize is an unacceptable answer. As I said at the beginning of this conversation, we're not trying to create internet cafes here. I was on this job for about a month. I'm relatively new to the agency when I was asked to participate on this panel today. And one of the things I was encouraged to talk about was what work still needs to be done. In government, there's this tendency to really emphasize inputs. And what I mean by that is the activity that's directly tied to whatever contribution we're making. So how many jobs did this road construction project make? How many matching dollars were we able to pull down from the federal government? How many people were we able to get to walk into a state-supported community technology center? And those are important numbers to capture, but from an economic development standpoint, from trying to right a disparity standpoint, I think, this is my opinion, it's even more important to capture and understand and demand outcomes. What are the outputs? What are we getting from what we're doing here? If our goal is to empower people through digital skills literacy and adoption so that they can get a job or go to school and live more sustainable lives, it's going to take a lot more than a state grant to accomplish that. It's going to take a sustained effort between state and local governments, between the private sector, businesses, nonprofits, community advocates, and education to really support the type of robust community technology center network that we're trying to build here in Illinois, and that's what it's going to take to really bridge that digital divide that we're all talking about. And I think that what we have done over the last 10 to 12 years with this grant has really made a difference. We have many anecdotal examples of how this program has positively impacted people's lives, how it's positively impacted communities, but we need better metrics and we need better empirical data to bring to this program a level of sophistication and strategy to really move the needle with respect to expanding access to broader educational and employment opportunities. In a moment, you're going to hear from two current grantees of the Digital Divide program who have done some remarkable things in the communities that they serve, and I think it's important to hear that on-the-ground perspective. But before I stop talking and before I yield the floor, I do want to give you a sense with where we are at with the program today. Applications for the next grant cycle starting in June were due last month on March 16th. And this year we received a total of 321 applications, which was nearly double the amount as last year. And just telling you from a staff perspective, that is a lot of applications. And of those 321 applications, 181 had never applied before, so we received 181 new applicants. DCEO breaks down the state. We look at the state and break them down into 10 distinct economic regions, all of which were represented in the applicant pool, but not evenly. Of the 321 applications received, nearly 3 out of 4 were from Northeast Illinois, so I'm referring to Cook and the Collar counties. 169 applications came from the city of Chicago alone, which is over 50% of the total. The fewest, just 22 applications, came from central Illinois, so places like Quincy, Pittsfield, Peoria, and Champaign. We're in the evaluation process right now, so we're going through and evaluating each application's level of community need, their level of community support from local partners, the quality of the proposal itself, as well as the cost and sustainability model of each application. And we'll also be putting those metrics against geographic considerations. And we should be announcing all of the recipients for the new grant cycle in June. But once these announcements are made and the checks are written, we're going to hammer home some strategies to ensure a good return on our investment, things that perhaps weren't as great a priority in recent years. So the first is putting much greater emphasis on peer-to-peer mentorship opportunities. We're going to proactively introduce and connect new CTCs, new grantees with current or former CTCs who know what they're doing, who understand the models and know how to sustain themselves. Secondly, we have an independent advisory committee that oversees this grant program. That is, we have a new chair actually, and we just met with our new chair for the first time last week. And there is a refreshed effort to really emphasize, leveraging external resources to support the network as a whole. And finally, we're going to focus this year on connecting the dots in a way that we haven't before, which means aligning our CTC network with the broader ecosystem, which again includes business, education, and all those other stakeholders. But this is just the beginning, and with new beginnings often comes new people. I'm going to call you out, Irma. Raise your hand. Everyone, this is Irma Lopez, who's worked with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity for a number of years, and she actually just joined our Digital Divide grant team this week, so she is going to be the queen of Digital Divide, and I encourage all of you to get to know her. In closing, I just want to leave you with this. Here in Illinois, we've got a lot of human capital that can and should be activated. There are a lot of people who have a lot to contribute, but perhaps we lack the tools and the training necessary to realize their full potential. The Digital Divide program is different from a lot of the other things that DCEO traditionally does, things like providing tax incentives and incentive packages and lending initiatives. It's unique in that it approaches economic development and prosperity from a perspective of democratizing technology and access for the greater good. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, and I'm even more eager to hear your thoughts on how we can improve what I believe with all my heart is really a good program. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the state perspective. Now, as indicated, we're going to hear from 2 of the projects that have been funded by the state. First, we'll hear from Kara Kennedy from Lummi.
Slideshow, yeah.
Okay.
So. Mid-age eyes now. So, well, good afternoon. And I am Kara Kennedy with Lummi, and I'm excited to be here. Last year was my first year coming to eChicago, and I learned a lot from interacting with everybody, and so I was excited to be asked to be here today. And when I was asked to join, I was encouraged to focus on 2 of the major projects that we're doing, one that is funded by DCO, and one that is a new grant that we received from the city. And then I too was asked the same question that you were, Joey, about what do I see in the future? So what do I think is our work that needs to be done? So just to get right to the first piece, what DCO has funded us to do over the past couple of years is to take a project that got started when I first started Lumity 2.5 years ago through a partnership with the state and with Microsoft with Elevate America. And basically, the company really wanted to get a lot of vouchers and get more people who were unemployed or underemployed utilizing their products, so that way they could get the skills to hopefully get jobs was the concept. And they asked us to help bridge these vouchers with CTCs. And I was mentioning just a few minutes ago how literally 8 months after that program was completed, we were still getting phone calls and people asking us about it. So we thought, there's obviously a great need, so let's go ahead and invest ourselves in the Microsoft IT Academy program and really try to get it out to as many CTC trainers as we could, so that way we can take a small investment and be able to really leverage it. And that's exactly what we've been doing over the past couple of years. So we are training CTC trainers on how to take this self-paced, self-learn curriculum that's in the IT Academy and how to convert it into a blended learning, instructor-led classroom approach. Because I know I'm not necessarily a self-paced self-learner, so we all need a little help. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we are doing that free for any CTC that is interested in the state. One of the greatest barriers we face in getting more CTCs to take us up on it in some ways is that there's a level of distrust. Like, that's too good to be true. Like, really? You're giving us this for free? And so once we really, establish the relationship and they do see that we're really being legit, that there are no strings attached other than giving us some numbers in return, then we're off and running. And so just since July 1st, we are working with 16 new CTCs who are actively using the program. We've actually gotten additional CTCs who have been trained on how to use it, but we're also going back and doing some orientation and just kind of getting them geared. They're more at the beginning stage and they're not ready to run, so we're working with them right now. We are covering the state. That was part of the deal, was we needed to branch out beyond Chicago, even though we know the bulk of CTCs are here in Chicago, they're all over. So we have been successful in reaching out into Aurora, Chicago, eChicago, Rockford, and Springfield. And we have conversations also in other areas that we're working on, but haven't got them up and running yet. So we are looking at having our first little graduation ceremony for 68 graduates who have successfully completed the training and have been able to get jobs, have done some good things with this program. So we're very excited about that. And I do have the contact information. You can contact Lumity or contact Melinda if you're interested in getting engaged with that. Since July, here are just some numbers. Talk about outcomes, Joey. Here are some of the outcomes that we've been able to produce since the beginning of our grant cycle. And, we really like to look at the bottom line there. We really want to see how many are getting into more advanced training so that way they can really get jobs. How many people are basically going from the basic entry into getting more advanced training. And so far with the partners that we have, and granted the 16 just got started in July, they didn't all start in July, so this is all tapered type of numbers, but this is what we're yielding so far. So I do look forward to the conversations about what are some additional metrics that we really want to be capturing to tell the bigger picture about this. And what I'm excited about is this program has really helped us get ready for a new program that we are just launching right now with city funding from the broadband funding that the city of Chicago received, and that is CTC Connect. And basically what we're doing is we're identifying models of CTCs out there. And so far with just our beginning of just our history, which has been for about the last 10 years, we've been, actually since 1998 is when we really started getting active with CTCs as an organization. But through just the last couple of years, our staff have been out meeting with a lot of organizations and really trying to capture some way of identifying the different approaches that people are making in their communities. So we've identified 4 so far. This is just the beginning brush. But we're seeing that there are just basic, getting at kind of what the minimum entry point is for a DCO grant or to call yourself a CTC here in the state. And that is just general access to computers and the internet, and maybe some basic how-tos of turning it on and how to work a mouse, etc. The next area is more on training specific. And this is where there is more, training that is being provided over a series of times, so that way people can really get some skills. And those are traditionally been focused more on the workforce development or job readiness, getting jobs, employment type of training that we're seeing. We're also seeing a lot of the specialized programs. I mean, there's some really cool technology out there today, and people want to learn how to use it, especially the youth and social media and a wide variety. And so we're seeing where there's more advanced specialized type of programs that are going on in these CTCs. And so we want to really look at what's happening and what are they able to do with it and what are the outcomes from that. And the last one is more the business development, more like the local chamber of commerce that are in the community that are really working more with the small businesses and the entrepreneurs. And this has been a really exciting eye-opening for me, just to see what really is going on that I had no idea that was going on in our backyards. And so we're capturing what are these 4 different models and seeing are there other models out there. But right now, pretty much everything has been able to fit in these 4 different models. So with the CTC Connect program, we are aiming to have 70 CTCs here in Chicago who are going to be able to access a combination of technology support, best practices training, we're holding networking events, and access to a volunteer management tool to match them with corporate employees with tech skills. And I'm going to talk briefly about each of those just to give you an idea of what those mean. Basically, to be a pilot site or to participate in this program, one of the strategies that the city asked us to do is to focus on areas where they're not already heavily investing in those communities. So, for example, we know about the new Woodlawn Choice project that's just getting launched, the smart communities, which have been going on already for a few years. Those are the communities that we're not engaging directly with this opportunity because they're already getting a nice set of investments in them. So we're really looking for folks who haven't been blessed yet. Whoops. I went the wrong way. I'm still going the wrong way. So basically here are the 11 pilot sites that actually it's now 10, and I took one out because they really weren't able, they've had some staffing changes, so we took them out. So we have 10 pilot sites instead of 11 in there. So I didn't get that corrected. But this shows you where we're trying to map them based on the model that they are. And we're capturing a lot of data from each of these pilot sites. And here's just a map to show you we're really trying to look geographically at the diversity within the city and with the communities that they're serving. So the tech support basically is we really are trying to approach this in these funds are not going to be here forever. We know that this is a time limited. We have to spend everything by the end of July 2013. And so we also aren't sure, where is the additional funding going to come from that most of us have been relying on over the past few years. So we really are approaching this from, we want to empower the staff to really learn as we provide these support services, so that way they can actually start taking care of more of their tech situations that come up. So we are providing the hands-on tech. They do have a 800 number, or actually it's a local number that they call to be able to get some phone support. And if they need to have on-site support, that is also covered. But we kind of have that triage approach, so that way we can maximize the money that we have and not just spend it with all on-site. Basically, we start off by doing a tech assessment, really looking at their landscape, what's their tech, their equipment, how old is it, and this has been amazing. Places that you go in and you're like, wow, this is beautiful. Once you start looking at it, you see, oh my goodness, they have, daisy chained some things, and we're like going, you are ready to go down, dudes. And unfortunately, we did have a situation where I was actually at another CTC, and we had just been meeting with one the week before and said, you're at risk to go down. Your network is really at risk. It's very vulnerable, and here's what we think we need to do, and let's put our game plan together. I'm at another CTC, and sure enough, we get the crisis call. We're down. Oh my God, we got this big class coming in. The mayor's coming in. What do we do? It was just horrendous. So thank goodness I'm there, and these guys are very, competent, capable. They're like, okay, we need to get them this. I'm literally carrying equipment back with me into the city and dropping it off at this site. So it all worked out well, but it's like we want to prevent those type of crises from happening. And so that's what we're doing with the tech assessment, so that way we can really get them up and create what are those minimum specs that we need them to have, so that way we can get them off to the right start and be successful. So, and then we have the traditional, you guys know what tech support is, so I'm not going to go into great detail there. So then we have the best practices. CTC Net, created a really great manual a few years ago. That was a good beginning, but things have evolved. We need to add a lot more detail. So we want to take the best of what's out there and bring those resources to the CTCs. And so that's what we're doing. We're gathering from across the states where we can find information, but then we're also gathering things that are from the pilot sites themselves and kind of taking the best of the best and putting it on a website. And then we're developing training to go with each of those. So we're developing training programs on fundraising, on marketing your programs, etc. All the things that it takes to run a successful and sustainable model. We alluded to the volunteer piece. Volunteers are really going to be a big part of how do we sustain these models. And so one of the beauties is Lumity is heavily involved with the corporate community. So what we're doing is we're bridging corporate technology employees who want to get back to their community, but they just don't know how to go about it. And so we have this portal that we're piloting from another community. It's already up and running. We're beta testing it here. And we're getting volunteers to put their profile in there, and it's kind of like an eHarmony for matching tech volunteers with program needs with the nonprofits that are between 2 and 20 hours. And they literally have to agree to each other, and it's all very mapped out about what step-by-step do they need to do to approach that project that they have in their community. But it's our way of trying to bridge the two resources together to get some great work done, all for free. Networking events. You guys know what networking events are. Our next one is actually going to be on security issues. And we're having a variety of different not-for-profits, CTCs, and some corporate experts who have, like McAfee. They really know antivirus and some of the issues that some of the CTCs have been bringing to us as issues. So we're bringing those kind of people and bridging, again, people who, are at the latest and greatest knowledge of what's going on, so we can get that into the hands of our folks immediately. So our next event is coming up in about 2-3 weeks. And we're going to be launching our website. We've been working heavily on this. It will be launched probably in May. It's actually, a lot of it's ready, but we're just waiting to get more content in there. And we'll be mass disseminating the URL for that so people can come. It is totally free. We're putting all the best practices up there. We're putting up these models and just, lots of information. We have tech troubleshooting, questions and answers and pictures and little videos and things like that to help people, so that way they don't have to call and pay money for that tech support. They can have that resource right at their fingertip. So if you are interested, if you know of a Chicago-based CTC who you think would be interested in this, let us know. We want to make sure there are so many CTCs out there that we did not know about in the city of Chicago alone, and we know it goes beyond that. So we're really trying to get a huge database of who's all out there, so that way we can be communicating and sharing this information with them. And to wrap up, because I don't know how much more time I had to address the last question, my biggest thing of what I think we need to be focusing on and doing, there's all these pockets of great things that are going on, resources that are going on. You have the state, you have the county, and you have the city. We really need to be coming together as a unified source of resources, strategizing, collaborating, coordinating, so that way we can really leverage the money that we have in this state to go to the greatest degree. And I'm excited about some of the latest steps that have taken place, with DCO and some meetings to really bridge all of those resources together, bringing the corporations who care about this, bringing the foundations, the people, the nonprofits, and the government agencies. So that's my plug for what I think is next.
Thank you. Our next presenter will be Brian Bell of Parkland College in Champaign-Urbana.
Hello? Yes, I can get this thing going. Thank you, Professor. First, again, my name is Brian Bell from Parkland College, which is in Champaign, Illinois. I have two mini presentations and one presentation. First, I'm going to cover the economics of the digital divide, and then I'm going to cover a new training model or new paradigm for training that we've adopted at our CTC, and I'm going to talk about a program we have in Champaign called the Digital Equality Initiative, which provides the actual materials for people, for computers that they need to bridge the digital divide. So, let me find this. Okay. I'm going to go through this pretty quick. So in the 4 years that I've been teaching at Parkland College with Digital Divide, the digital divide is not a problem in itself, but a symptom of income, development, and literacy. Because without income, you don't have access to the internet or the machines to even start to begin to bridge the digital divide. So fewer people own computers and have access to the internet simply because they are poor, illiterate, or have more pressing issues such as food, health, shelter, and security. And this is what I'm learning from my students. So I'm going to go through some unemployment rates. All right, Champaign County unemployment rate from 16 to 25-year-olds is 17.7%. The county itself is 8.4%, and that's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Cook County unemployment is 9.1%. So we're doing a little better. Illinois unemployment is 9.4%. So these are some pretty high numbers. 51% of Hispanics and 40% of blacks are using their phones to access the internet, compared with 33% of whites. That's a 2010 Pew poll research. So when we're looking at digital divide, we're also looking at how people are connecting to the internet. And more low-income people are connecting to the internet using wireless technology. So that's what we're calling it's a new digital divide emerging, with Latinos and blacks being challenged by more, not less, access to technology. Since, for example, it's tough to fill out a job application on a cell phone. Researchers have noticed signs of segregation online that perpetrate divisions in the physical world. So this is telling me, I've thought about what creates a digital divide. It's access to technology. It's creating a digital divide. The more technology emerges, it pulls people from the have to the have-nots further apart. So technology is creating a digital divide. So this is my student population. 80% of my students have no computer or internet service at home. The average age is 45. It's 50-50 male-female, and 90% of my students are unemployed. Again, it's logistics, and it's basically where you are. It depends on where you get your student population from. My CTC is in the Illinois WorkNet Center, which also houses the Unemployment Center. So the Unemployment Center gets 300-400 people a day coming to the building. So I kind of recruit from that population by default. So that's why I get those numbers. So now I'm going to discuss what are we doing new. So in training, again, I've been doing this 4 years, and I'm looking at sustainability and my students, what they learn, then they leave and then they come back. And that's because of technology is always moving. So they'll learn something, and then 3 weeks or a month later or 6 months later, it's changed or it's new. This technology is always moving. So there's this it's not a curriculum, but it's more of a paradigm. It's called Fluency in Technology, and it's from the Computer Science and Telecommunications Board. This came out in 1999, but I like it, and it's working. Let me explain. So I want to redefine the word literacy. Literacy is the terms of and training of outcomes. It's too modest of a goal in the presence of rapid change because it lacks the necessity staying power. As the technology changes by leaps and bounds, existing skills become antiquated, and there is no migration path to new skills. A better solution is for the individual to plan to adapt to changes in technology. This involves learning sufficient foundational material to enable one to acquire new skills independently. So example, we teach our students to learn how to do a thing. That's usually the pedagogy. So my new approach is to teach learning how to learn how to do a thing, which is more sustainable. So I'm teaching my students to actually fish instead of preparing the fish for it. So it's a little different. So example, so if you teach someone how to use a Word application and they learn Word, what if they go to a machine and Word is not working right? Or it crashes, or it freezes, or they need to know some more fundamental things on how Word works so they can move past that. To teach them just one thing and then send them out the door, they're always going to come back, or they won't be self-sufficient. People fluent in information technology, fit persons are able to express themselves creatively, to reformulate knowledge, and to synthesize new information. Fluency with information technology entails the process of lifelong learning, which individuals continually apply what they know to adapt to change and acquire more knowledge to be more effective in applying information technology to their work and personal lives. So I like to challenge my students into how they can learn how to become self-learners instead of just teaching them a particular thing, which is what we call digital literacy. In summary, fit individuals, they know a starter set of information technology skills who understand the basic concepts in which information technology is founded and who have engaged in the higher level thinking embodying the intellectual capabilities. Should use this information technology confidently and should become ready to learn new systems quickly and use them effectively. Should be able to apply information technology to personally relevant problems and should be able to adapt to the inevitable change as information technology evolves over their lifetime. To be fit is to possess knowledge essential to using information technology now and in the future. The reason why I'm very interested in this whole paradigm is my students now are starting to bring smartphones and laptops and tablets to class because we're in a post-PC era. That's what they're calling us. People are not buying desktops and machines anymore, or laptops. We're getting past that. And even digitally challenged students are buying tablets and they have smartphones. So I'm getting those type of questions in class. So we got to keep moving. All right. That's that. Watch this other one. This is a program called the Digital Equality Initiative. It's a partnership between Parkland College and local and state and national corporations to bridge the gap between the privileged and the underprivileged, reducing the proportion of our youth that are unprepared for higher education and improving the employability of adults and youth in our community. So we follow the common process, identify the problem, propose a solution, implement the solution, and identify new problems. So number one, identify the problems. We all know the problems. Low-income citizens lack access to technology. The youth are underprepared for higher education, and our adults are underprepared for job requirements. And usable computers are filling up landfills. Literacy must now include the ability to use computers to communicate. That's what they call digital literacy. So, number two, find the solutions. What would be the solutions? Well, the solution would be to have free computer literacy training in public computer labs, set up computer training and access centers in anchor institutions, public housing, and community centers, and provide computer equipment to students who participate in training class, and provide affordable, low-cost computer equipment for the entire community. That would be a solution. How do we make the solutions a reality? What we've done was we created partnerships that include corporate, educational, financial, medical, social, local, state, and federal institutions, And each of these partners contribute something we call a waste resource. Stuff that they deem as end of life or garbage, then we can reuse those materials. We synthesize these into practical solutions that support the social mission of the partner. So that's our selling strategy. So, we use your waste resource, and it's going to benefit you because it benefits your social statements. But it's been working. How we do low-cost computers, how we do it. Well, we discover, we acquire, we refurbish, and we distribute. So, one, we establish a relationship with donor agencies to receive out-of-lease, out-of-service computer equipment from State Farm, Baltimore Aircoil, Champaign Public Library, the City of Champaign, this recycling center in Champaign, and Volition Gaming, which is a national gaming corporation. We acquired the machines. So State Farm, they probably go through 2,000 or 3,000 computers a year. It's a very big, large corporation. It's global. And we receive about 500 of these machines. So, and these will end up in the landfill if I didn't interject between the landfill, and Parkland College. Refurbish. So the partnership with a corporation, a local corporation, a wireless company, they provide the manpower to refurbish the machines and create something called a digital equality initiative, which is Parkland College and the corporation. And then we distribute the machine. So I've been doing this 3 years now, so word is out. So any church, any nonprofit, anybody that needs a computer that live in Champaign County, they know to call me. We've set up about probably 60. This list is a partial list. We've been everywhere, done everything. We've given away about 1,000 computers. 5, how do we do it? Well, the DCO, Digital Staff, funds the staff, myself. Parkland College provides the facilities and the management. Guest List, which is the Graduate School of Library and Information Sciences, which is a University of Illinois department that provides student volunteers. And the IMC, which means the Independent Media Corporation, provides AmeriCorps volunteers. And they offer, together we offer the training, the literacy classes, the help desk, and the computer lab resources. Together we offer all those things. And 6 is our successes. 300 machines placed in labs, that includes churches, nonprofits, and community organizations. 600 machines placed in homes. That includes just individuals or students that are in my class. They receive a free computer. And we have diverted, roughly, if you factor in the weight of each machine, 20,000 pounds of electronic waste. We've trained 1,800 people. We've created 3 full-time positions, and we've mentored 40 Parkland students and we mentored 3 high school students during a summer program. And finally, the next step is every 12 months we reevaluate. We see how we're serving the community, and we try to figure out more issues. Our goals are to educate the digitally unprepared, provide affordable technology resources, and divert usable electronics from landfills, and to build partnerships. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have only a few minutes. Everyone has been really very good with time. And so I want to applaud everyone for being responsible, competent citizens. But we do have time for some questions or comments. And we need you to come forward. I just want to remind everybody that this is being streamed. The Twitter feed is working. And please come.
Well, my question is to Janice. Janice, right?
Kara.
Kara, I'm sorry. A couple questions. You don't have to answer all of them because we don't have enough time, but my name is Maria Modesta. I have computer science and information technology at Parkland. I have worked for a digital library in the past, before actually, Brian took it over and took it to be a workforce development. couple questions I have.
Can everybody hear her?
Sorry, couple questions I have. When you presented your statistics, I wanted to know when the people that you have provided with employment or placed them or helped them to get employment, can you probably elaborate on what kind of background, educational background and experience they had when they actually started with you guys? Do they come, or were they displaced workers, or do they have degrees, or do they have no degrees at all? That's one of my questions. Should I ask them one by one, or just kind of like allow them to?
You can ask 2 questions.
That's it? Okay. That's one. All right. My other question is there any correlation between the IT Academy that you have, the Microsoft IT Academy, and the training they get through Microsoft in finding jobs? Is that actually being a factor where they're finding jobs, or are there other factors, or are there evidence that there's a correlation? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good questions. So those numbers of people that you saw when I had from July 1st, that represents participants at those 16 different organizations. So the people really do vary, and that's one area that's in some ways a little harder to get some of the data on what you were asking for, like what their background was and all of that, because we don't require that kind of information to come back to us. But I can tell you, like 8 of the people of that number are students who were at the Prosser Career Academy. And they are literally, it's a vocational high school. And as a result of them getting their certifications, they were able to get part-time jobs. So they ended up, basically continuing with their schoolwork, but they were able to get some additional income for their families. And that's a, underserved community here in West Chicago. So it ranges from that kind of scenario where it's talking about youth doing it, as well as unemployed individuals who, had been unemployed for a while. I don't have the data, so I can't get into that level. It's more anecdotal from what I know, just from being out visiting, or what my colleagues say to me. And then in regards to your second question about the correlation between, the IT Academy and getting those jobs, we do ask for feedback from the CTCs on some of the forms of, give us this anecdotal information. And so some, like those students did say, had I not gotten that certification, I wouldn't have gotten the job, because that was a requirement for the job. But the data on that piece is loose. And, the reality is for us, it's a challenge just to get those numbers, and to get into that level is, it's building and creating a way to help them see the value of creating, getting that kind of data and reporting it back, because it's going to be part of continued funding. So I think that's kind of a next step for us, of really digging in more into those outcomes and not worrying so much about some of those other numbers, which are very strenuous to gather. So I think that's a trend that I like hearing you talk about.
We have time for one more question. Maybe a couple if they're short.
Yes, my name is Greg Gates. I'm a social worker working with reentry populations. And it's very interesting that youth that are in correctional and detention centers, when they're released, they're actually outside of the education mainstream, so that they really don't return to school, because in many instances the public schools are focused on achievement, and these kids are sort of outside that area. But what I've learned is that, and I've worked in a number of detention and correctional facilities, what I've learned is that on the inside, kids are really exposed to technology, because they've got computers. So that when they exit these facilities, they're not as exposed anymore. So the question is, how do you, and when you talk about a community technology center, how do you develop, or is there a provision in terms of funding to develop a community technology center to sort of link those kids who are at a certain level in terms of their technology skills, and how do we sustain that?
That's a great question, and I think what you're hitting on is is a problem that affects not just that population, but a lot of disadvantaged populations just in general. One of the things that I was mentioning when I was speaking earlier was the geographic distribution of the applications that we received. By far, we received more from the city of Chicago than anywhere else. So, in my opinion, I kind of see that as a symptom of perhaps not enough communities are aware that the money's out there, you know, and the burden shouldn't be on them. I think the burden should be on government, on agency to let people know, hey, we have this money, we need everyone in the community to do this. There's a kicker though, as I was explaining, what we do is by making grants is essentially we make investments in something that may already exist or something that's in the works. So if there was someone in your community who dealt with, you know, who's more familiar with those with that population and the specific disparities and issues impacting that population than I would be, if I can make you aware of the fact that we had money available, you would have that opportunity to come back to me and give me an application, right? That's something that's a level of communication that I think we need to work on, both on the provider side and on the government side, because really that's where you're going to be able to really reach those populations that do need the access and build that pipeline between re-entry and other educational opportunities or vocational opportunities or, you know, higher ed opportunities. So.
Great. One last question. I unfortunately will then fold everything into the final session.
Yes, my name is Don Kelly. I'm from Chicago South Side. I'm involved in a multimedia center. I had a question from Brian pertaining to the way technology is leap forwarding ahead with the elimination of towers. How soon do you see that being a problem of being able to provide equipment to the communities through donations from these services? In other words, do PC towers going to be around for another 2 to 3 years before they'll be kicked to the curb all the way? Thank you.
Well, that's good news. When corporations adopt, like, so there's lots of banks and hotels that are just buying iPads. I mean, they're not buying towers or desktop machines anymore. So what do? They send them to landfills. So they need to, CTCs like myself and other CTCs should be branching out to these corporations and say, give me your own machines.
I guess what I'm saying is the towers will still be used.
They're still functional. They're still, if you could connect them to the internet,
Yeah.
they work. If they can get to the
line.
internet, bottom line, because everything is web-based anyway. I mean, you can teach Word, but there's also open source applications that you can teach online. So if connect access to the internet, access to broadband, that's the level that we're at. And it doesn't matter how the machine looks. And they're all going to end up in landfills anyway.
Well, thank you all very much for an exciting panel. This panel is now going to fold into the final panel. We're going to take a break. And it's very important to link this panel to the final panel because what we're going to be doing in the final panel is not only summing up the 2 days of conferencing that we've done, but also envision what we need to do in the coming year, and specifically in eChicago next year, because if you think about it, we would love to have those 16 CTCs represented here in eChicago because they need to network with each other and with the other policymakers at a lot of different levels. We'd like to continue to see the state, the county, and the city represented here because real people don't often get to talk to important people who control policy and money. And so that's really important. But in general, what we're talking about is a safe space in which people can talk to each other and can test ideas with each other. And so we hope, for example, that people who are interested in hip-hop and digital technology end up being interested in digital technology and state policy. And exactly the question that Gaither asked about populations that are marginalized in the mainstream discourse, and yet in many communities they represent the kind of human capital that the society needs if we're going to be successful. Hip-hop was the first digital mobile culture that came out of the very community that was targeted as being digitally divided. That's who created hip-hop and went everywhere in the world. And so what we have to do is to understand that we can see the society through lenses that devalue neighborhoods, people, organizations, ethnicities, etc. That is one of the greatest dangers to democracy, one of the greatest dangers to the information society. And that's part of what we want to talk about in the last session, is how eChicago can be more effective as a space for people to have the kind of conversations that can inspire our imaginations and that can lead us to networking, creating new linkages that perhaps are not predictable or normal, because we need the out-of-the-box thinking and activity. Most of us aspire through education to get in the box. We want to be in the box because that's what looks like it's sustainable, etc. And the fact of the matter is, in this time of great transition, the most important thinkers are trying to get out of the box or to create a different box. And so we need everybody to do that. And so we're very pleased to have the state and to have two agencies that are doing it. We're more than that. We're pleased that you're here, and you out there in Cyberland are here. And we really think this has been great. 10-minute break, and then we'll return to convene here in the Cardinal Room for the final session. Again, thank you very much. You need to share that amount with everybody.
Which one? Present. Oh, present. Yeah. You put my car, I have to share it.